to order. Y'all will bow with me while I pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day and the beautiful weather that you've given outside that proves your love for us. And dear Lord, I pray that today you would help us to keep our minds and our mouth in order to what would best bring forth your will and your love for the students of Madison County. In Jesus' name, amen.
I want to start off with a couple updates. Today had a meeting with a couple of the career tech folks from the State Department, and we're going to be able to get a grant under the JAG program. That's the Jobs for Alabama Graduates. This is one of the priorities for Governor Ivey to get our graduates ready for work. Met with them for about an hour and a half today with our team and their team, and we're excited about this opportunity that's going to target 35 to 45 at-risk kids and be able to get them, transition them into the workplace. And they've got kind of a research kind of way that works, and so we're going to form up a plan, get it to them. The grant application's due by the end of the week, I think. So it's going to be a quick turnaround on that, but they kind of targeted us to be a part of that, so that is exciting there. And it is Teacher Appreciation Week, so we love our teachers. That's for sure. They do a great job, and with all the testing and everything that's going on this week, it's a fun week to celebrate that. And it's Nurses Appreciation Week, and you don't want to leave the nurses out that are in our school or that are on our board. We do appreciate our nurses. So there was something else I was going to mention, but I didn't write down.
It was nurses.
That was good. That was it.
You were going to say it twice.
Very good. Okay. So with that, I recommend approval of the agenda for May the 8th, 2018.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right. We will start off with a few discussion items, and Michelle Stovall.
So it just goes through the different types of transfer requests. So it looks a little different from what was initially. So it just makes sure it breaks it down to who is actually the person responsible for approving. So the first section, the schools approve, the school principal approves. The second section, the Pupil Services Department will approve. And then the third section is the board for approval. And so the form now just goes in line with the actual who's approving. So the bottom pieces on the other side reflect who's signing. Any changes or any questions about the transfer request form? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, because we don't have the other side here, and off the top of my head, I can't remember, but does this specifically make sure the parents understand that they have to do this every single year? That it doesn't just transfer over, that they have to resubmit the form if they're doing the transfer. So, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And I didn't see it here, but
I'm looking for the wording.
It says it in one of them, I know.
Because
Under employee's child, it does say it's
It does,
required
yeah.
annually.
Employee's child,
It
it
does not
does.
say that for custody.
So what happened? Yeah, it doesn't say it for custody.
On the form.
But it
Okay.
says for one semester, a school year, or permanently based on
Gotcha,
conditions
okay. I
outlined in
didn't
the
see
court
it.
order.
seen this a couple times.
So custody depends on what that documentation says.
Yeah.
The other ones have a specific timeline. So senior status is, of course, just a school year. Alternate enrollment is they can finish that semester.
Yeah.
Advanced enrollment, they can only complete a semester before they can enroll. And then employee child, they have to repeat that every year.
It just always seems to be the issue when these come to the board. You know, well, we didn't know. We didn't know we had to resubmit.
Gotcha. All right. So moving on to our code of conduct, we have a few small changes. So if you're scrolling through the agenda, on page 6 is the first change, and it's to match the actual verbiage for virtual school. We don't have a virtual school, we have a virtual academy. On page 9, In the textbooks adoption section, we added the book governance code as a reference. Our biggest changes come through pages 16 through 20 with our classifications and codes. We have talked about these extensively last year and added definitions so that there's clarification and less confusion on the parent side, on the school side, so everybody is clear what the actual codes are and the violations that go with each code. So the additions is in class 1, they are minor violations, and so it spells those out. There weren't any new additions of those codes. In class 2, those are intermediate violations. The only addition is the threat assessment being added to the 215. And then with the knife possession, the addition of the 3 inches. And these are all not Michelle Stovall definitions. These are state definitions or legal definitions. And then unauthorized school absence, the truancy piece has come out. The truancy piece is now moved to a class 1 because truancy is tardiness, whereas school absence is going to still be the class 2. For class 3s, these are our major violations. The changes in class 3 was the 320. It used to say motor theft or unauthorized use. We've split those two up. If it's a theft, it's now moved to a class 4, whereas the unauthorized motor vehicle use of a school vehicle, that is a 320. We also add the threat assessment with the 325 as well. And then false alarm, we added that to 313.
Can I ask a question? The threat and intimidation under medium and low concern, the definitions are the same, is that correct?
Correct. That's why the threat assessment form is the addition to that piece, because the form actually delineates which code to use.
Okay, and that form is where?
It's a separate form that's on our website, or that Michelle uses to, or our principals may use to
The schools
determine
use
the
the-
severity of a threat.
So they go through and
They'll classify as medium, high, or low.
And that has more delineation as to what, because these don't at all.
right.
Okay. And so we don't attach that anywhere in the code of conduct?
No, but it's
Or
available online.
should we say that the form is available online?
We can. I can add that in.
That's really for us to do. It's not like parents don't do the threat assessment.
They're not completing the
That's
threat
our school
assessment.
people do.
The school is going to be completing the threat assessment.
I just am thinking if I'm a parent and you accuse my child of a threat or intimidation, I'm going to want to know how you decided low, medium, or high. So will that be shared with that parent at that time?
The school administration should give all evidence of involving the incident in their student.
Because what we've dealt with so far has been, in regards to threats, that's been the thing, is was it really that bad? So how are we defining what is that bad? So you're saying it's on that form?
Yeah.
And so does just one person administer the threat assessment, or do multiple people?
Typically, it's the administrator at the school, and then the school principal gives the final say of what code they're going to use. So the AP or assistant principal may be the one doing the investigation, and then they confirm with their school principal about the actual code to send. Because the threat assessments are a piece of that child's file.
So the low, medium, or high is at the discretion of the principal, but it is made by using this resource tool in order,
Yes.
and has to be completed in order for them to make that decision.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, looking at the form, there's an interview that is asked, and then based on the interview, the principal classifies the level of concern. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. I just want to make sure I understood the process, because as a parent reading this, it doesn't, it just looks like somebody just kind of decides.
Gotcha.
So when it gets to central office,
I know.
like the principal or an AP decide the threat, and then it comes here and it goes to yourself?
It depends on if it's a class 3 or a class 4 violation. So if it's a class 1 or 2, it doesn't come to me. But if it's a class 3, then all class 3s have a disciplinary hearing attached to it, and they would include that in their investigation piece.
Okay. And is it just one person at central office that takes it if it's number 3, or is it a group of people?
It goes through the hearing officer process, so I evaluate all hearing packets, then the hearing officer has the actual hearing, conducts the hearing.
Okay. So it's not a committee, it's the people services?
Yes.
Yes, okay. But sometimes it's more than one person, right? Like, it could include somebody else sometimes?
Right now, hearing officer is either myself or Ronnie Blair.
Okay. But you're not doing it both at the same time, it's either one?
I review all of them, but he may conduct the actual hearing. We don't both conduct them.
Okay.
And then I did add the note for the 329, all of those, because we can't account for everything. So any violation that does not fall up under one of these descriptions that does rise to a major level does have to be approved by the hearing officer or designee. And then the note is that all Class 3s are subject to a disciplinary hearing. The typical outcome for those is alternative placement, so the note does address that during an alternative placement that the student is not allowed on any other property besides PACE. And in the Class 4s, we added 421, must have superintendent or designee approval. And then we had 2 new codes. Again, the 422 came from the separation of the Class 3 motor vehicle theft or unauthorized use. And the 423, the terroristic threat, is the new code to address threats that actually commit a crime on our campus. Other changes on page 21, which is the medication policy. This is, we used to have our policy that only covered 4 medications that would be allowed to be brought. This policy now opens it up for any over-the-counter medications to be brought. They still have to fill out the parent authorizer at the school level.
Michelle, I had 2 questions about
Okay.
that. It says in the draft that the parent must provide the OTC medicine in the original unopened seal container with specific instructions.
Mhm.
But it doesn't say, did you just mention there's a form for that?
Yeah, so there is a parent. Donna Stiles is our lead nurse.
Previously, years ago, before we had nurses in every school, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Before we had nurses in every school, whoever was at the front office, the medication assistant would be receiving that medication. So there were a group of pediatricians that sat down with the lead nurses and decided that we could take 4 medications over the counter with the parent's signature. At the state level, our medication curriculum says that anything that's FDA approved, the nurse at that school can receive that over-the-counter medication if that student, if the parent brings that medication and it's appropriate for their age and their weight. So that's all we're going to, because we have a nurse in every school. They still have their clinical judgment. If they feel like that parent needs to take that child to the physician and get that signature on that PPA, we have the ability to do that. But that's really, the goal is to keep students at school, and hopefully students will return to school quickly. So if I have allergy medications that I can administer to that student that a parent has brought, then I want to be able to do that, and that's really what that speaks to. Does that answer your question?
I was just curious if the specific instructions were going to be documented in writing in that first sentence.
It's an over-the-counter physician-parent prescriber authorization form, so it's
So
a state document.
that form you would use, okay.
It's a state document.
Okay, and the second question I had is on that new sunscreen law that says they can have sunscreen at school. Mr. Weiss asked me about that last year because it passed and we didn't address it in the code of conduct. But the child, if I read that law correctly, the child can like have that in their backpack and it doesn't go through the school nurse. So should we mention that in this? I didn't think about this until today, I'm sorry.
That
But
just
it is
was,
work
that law
session.
was made off of one case where the teacher wouldn't let the kid put on sunscreen. That
And
really,
we're really already functioning that
Yeah.
in that way. If the child can apply their own sunscreen, then the parent can send it in their book bag. If the
Okay.
teacher has to apply the sunscreen, then the parent would fill out an
The form.
over-the-counter
Okay.
So I think we're good in that area.
All right, I just want to make sure y'all knew about that.
Can we go back to code of conduct, I mean, the level 4.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to right now, but before we get done.
Okay. The other additions were in the acceptable use. On page 26, the addition of E. Oh, where's my form? Sorry.
Personal hotspots.
Which, uh-oh.
Is this something that we see that's happening, or have we had issues where
With personal hotspots. Mark, have you
Mark.
seen that?
we're
There you go. Teachers and students?
So,
Say that again, what?
as long as they're not using it in a way to override our policies.
So what if a child is in a class and they have their cell phone and the Wi-Fi is so slow that they just can't really do what they're supposed to do, so they just use, like Verizon.
Well, that would be violating our policy, the SEPA guideline, Child Internet Protection Act, which we're required by law to make sure that every student under our care is used filters so they cannot get to pornography or other images or graphics that may not be suitable for younger kids. If they use one of those MiFi units, they're overriding every filter we have in place, and it's wide open. So that's why we have to strongly discourage that, and we have a device we can go around and actually find those. We found 4 or 5 just in the last few weeks.
I think sometimes even the teachers get frustrated, maybe.
Oh, I agree 100%. And part of our E-rec funding this year is try to help that out. We're going to increase our bandwidth this summer. We're just 1.5 gig right now. We're going to increase it up to 3 gig by the end of the summer. So that will relieve some of the slowness issues. Now, some of the connectivity issues, we're working on that as well. And we've actually already, y'all passed the bid a couple of weeks ago to do the wiring for that. So as soon as that passes the federal government check off on it, we'll proceed with that.
Even if it's not good, they can't do that. I mean, they can't bring all hotspots.
So are we
It's
going to,
happening, though.
Yeah, that's why we're putting a
So
thing here to say it's a violation.
Okay, so right now it's really not.
So if they violate.
so are we going to educate our teachers to not say just jump on your own data so we can get our work done?
Yes, yes.
Mark, is there any, with the filters you have out there, is there any filter that would allow you to put a client on the machine, so even if they use the hotspot, it wouldn't prevent them from, it's still filter at the machine level?
Well, we've looked at a few items to do that. We thought about blocking it completely, but that's against the FCC rules to block it out completely because of 911 services. But we looked at several things, and hopefully when we get this new wireless start to integrate it, it's got a couple of features in it to look for rogue access points. And that would find a lot of its issues right now, and it would automatically knock them down. That's the plan moving forward.
The other addition on page 28 was the deletion of the webmaster in computer services department. And then the addition of, in the securing devices on page 29, because now we've moved to watches being, or wearable devices also having Bluetooth access. Those are not allowed during state testing. So, Ms. Rucker, you wanted to go back to?
Yeah, to the section 4 violations. I was going to ask you a question. So, so number 423, terrorist threat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that, I mean, it says any threat, so whether it's credible or not. I mean, like, if a kid says, I'm going to kill you, I mean, it doesn't really mean he's going to kill you. He just means he's frustrated with you, you know.
And that's why these violations are criminal. So they would have to be criminal, so it had to go through the SRO and charges be filed for it to be criminal. Because
So
the other
I
ones
guess
would
what
go through
I'm
a
trying to
threat
figure out
assessment.
is are we trying to figure out if it's a credible threat here, or is it just a threat?
That's what the threat assessment is for, when they do the interview to know what was made, what plan, is there a plan, does the child have access to those devices or weapons? That's what the threat assessment is for. But the level 4, the criminal one, is going to come with the SRO involvement.
So, I mean, this is like a real incident, so a child really made such a threat, and it was credible enough to the person that received the threat that it pretty much sent that child into quite a state of hysteria. it really wasn't credible, but to the child that received it, it was.
Right.
So where does that fall in this code of conduct?
That's why the SRO there handled that, and if the SRO makes the determination they're going to charge or it goes to an investigation, then it's a criminal charge. But if there's no criminal charges filed, it's not a criminal offense.
So it's up to the SRO.
Yeah, the threats are in all the classes. Or is it in 2, 3, and 4? Is it in 1, 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, a threat, you go through a pretty rigorous process to determine which category it would fall into.
And the other thing I was going to ask, because this came up in this, something real life, so the parent of the person that was threatened, the victim, we'll call him the victim, okay? So the parent of the victim is not, I mean, the victim, the child comes home and they're just a complete basket case because what happened at school, but the victim's parent really doesn't have an avenue of figuring out what happened or keeping apprised of what's going to happen to the person that made the problem. I mean, they're kind of left out in the dark. I mean, that's my perception. That may not be right, but that seems to be the victim sort of remains a victim. They never get any information about what has happened and what is going to happen to the child that made the problem. And so in looking at the policy, like there's a policy 6.10.5. So this is where I think the victim's parent could come in and complain about what happened.
A lot of times when you're talking about discipline, it's confidential. I can't share. If I got into a fight with Tim Sally, I can't share the other information with the parent as far as what the consequences are. That's confidential for that parent.
You wouldn't be able to if you got into a fight with
Correct.
him.
I'd
Yeah.
be done. But besides that.
But it sort of leaves that parent sort of just hanging because they don't know if they should send their child back because they don't know if that child that caused the problem is still there. They don't know what to do because they don't ever get any information. That seems to me like the victim remains a victim. And it seems like we should try to do something about that. You don't have to give the particulars of.
Usually the principals can work that, and they'll talk with the parents, hey, if a kid is returning from alternative placement, they'll let them know, hey, they're going to be back today, or, but we don't go, you know, anybody's welcome to attend when y'all vote on an expulsion. I mean, we go to executive session, come out, and it's a public vote, but we don't do a press release on who gets expelled. So, I mean, those kids have certain rights there, too. So, I mean, but principals if they'll work with our principals on that, and if they're having trouble getting any answers and things like that, we can work with the parent on that. But as far as like if they've been suspended for 3 days or 5 days or in school suspension and for how long and what else are they doing, and I don't like that punishment. You know, there is privacy there, and that's kind of the law. I mean, there's something.
Well, I guess it's not so much that it's like there's nowhere in policy. My child comes home and is just beside themselves because somebody threatened them at school. I can look at all these policies and I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. And it seems to me that we should have a procedure or process for that parent to, here's what you can do.
We have a harassment form and things like that they can fill out, but they'll contact with the administrators will direct them to go that. But as far as finding out the result at the end, you know, that's a different thing.
So they're just supposed to know that they need to contact the principal.
To handle it, yeah.
It's just
I would think of a
intuitively.
parent, if my kid comes home and my kid's threatened, I'm going to call the principal or somebody administrator and go, hey, what do we need to do here? Now, if they want to go on our website to find it, they can go there.
You have an anti-bullying, I don't have the policy manual in front of you, but you do have.
I know, I'm
a
looking at it.
complaints. Okay.
But here's the.
Those forms and the procedures are all found under the pupil services page of our website. And typically when parents will call and say, hey, this happened, we will direct them to that information, whether it's at the school level, whether it's at the office level. Here's what you can do next if you feel your child is being harassed or bullied.
Where is that? Because this parent never found it.
We also have Safe to Tell. That's the first link on the front page of our website, that kind of thing.
So that's how you get the process started. But I'm talking about once you've got a problem. So you're saying they should go, because I looked and I couldn't.
Yes, ma'am. If you go to the main page of our website, mcssk12.org, you go to departments, scroll down to pupil services, click on pupil services, and on the left-hand side, about halfway down the page, it should be harassment forms.
Do you think that's like going to be easy for the average parent to find?
It's really for our principals will either give them the form, email them the form when they come in that morning, come see me, that kind of thing. If you're saying when they find this out at home at night, I mean, our administrators need to work with the parents on that.
Do you think we should, okay, go ahead.
So I'm trying to follow you, Sherry, but is there a standard, so if there's an incident that happens at a school, and of course the victim, as Sherry says, beside themselves, is there a default instruction to the parent to say, hey, look, this is what you need to do, or this is to file a complaint or file a report, go here? Is it automatically said, or is it just implied? If they have an issue, they reach out, then you tell them that, or is it automatically given to them at the beginning of a conversation?
98% of the time, that student will tell a teacher or an administrator in the school. How a parent deals with that could be, an email to the school, it could be an email to me, and I direct it to the principal. Hey, please call this parent. I might get a Facebook message about it.
So most of the time, we don't hear about it, is what just the schools, like if there's a fight that happens, the other side, the victim's parents typically don't reach back out to the school.
No, we don't see that very much where they just demand to know what the punishment was. In some of the cases, that we were dealing with a few months ago, we had some of that.
Well, the case I'm speaking of, the parent wants to know because they want to know what they're going to do with their child. They're not going to send their child back with that person there necessarily. I mean, that's what the decision.
They need to just call the principal and us, and then we'll handle that individually. I mean, I don't think there needs to be a policy about that.
Well, and the point I was going to make was, I think policy 610.5, it says, it doesn't really make sense. It says reporting, investigation, and complaint resolution procedure. So I think that is where if the parent feels like something's not meeting their expectation, that this is the policy they go to. Is that right?
That's correct, but it also comes with a form that they have to fill out. So they have to fill out the form, and then that's what the procedure follows. So once they fill out the form, then we can report back on what's going on. But if they don't ever fill out the form, then we can't just necessarily go off and
I guess you would have to be pretty, I mean, it's not clear to me what you do. I mean, it's sort of like.
Well, let's go back and review 610.5. We'll put that on the agenda for another
Okay.
session, and we
Okay.
can discuss that.
That form's on, I found the form. And it's under resources forms, and then you click on that and you scroll through it, and it says student, well, I did have it.
Yeah, but the point is somebody going to know to go to Department Pupil Services? I mean, it's
No,
sort of
they're
a-
going to call the school.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope that any parent, that their child comes home just beside themselves about something that happened, that they would immediately pick up the phone and call the principal.
Well, in this
That's-
case, they did, but even after all of that happened, they were still unclear as to what they should do with their child.
Well, and a long time ago, back when I worked, we could tell parents what happened to the other child, but because of the privacy laws, we can no longer do that. And it is frustrating, I realize, for parents, but we're just following the law, I think, so.
Well, if we can revisit this policy.
Let's revisit that. Thank you, Mr. Owl.
you're welcome.
All right. Mr. Cubic?
All right, this will be real quick and real short. Alabama Code 1628-4 indicates that a child must be age 5 by September 1 in order to enter first grade. 6 in order to enter first grade and 5 for kindergarten. And this code was amended in 2016 to change the first grade entrance date from September 1 to December 1. So what this change here is, and it's in your folder, so you guys can look at it at your own leisure, and everything is color coded, so you'll see all the changes, okay? So what we're changing is from September to December. That's what we're changing on the entrance age. The kindergarten piece did not change, so that will remain the same. But it's in the folder, so you guys can read it at your own leisure, and if you have any questions, you can go ahead and let me know, and I'll be happy to address that for you.
It's actually December 31.
Is it December 31? Okay, then we'll get that corrected. I have it December 1st in here.
This is basically just to match what Alabama state law now says.
Correct,
changed the
and this
law.
is to be in compliance with the state law. And Ms. Stovall caught this, so we appreciate her catching it. And we'll get that changed to December 31st. So that's it with that policy. There's one other thing I need to make you aware of. Our 4K readiness that Mr. Solly has talked to you guys about before that we're going to be starting this year, it did not have a salary band identified. The salary band was to go in the same as the extended daycare. So in the file that's on the Google file, we have added the 4K readiness to the daycare piece down there so that the salary is there so the principals know exactly what to pay for the 4K readiness program that we're starting this year at the elementary school. So I wanted to make you aware that we had to add that this morning so that we get our salary schedule. So we didn't want them to be one school paying $20 and one school be paying $8 an hour. So it's all uniform on the extended daycare. That's it. Any questions about the policy?
All right, we'll move to some administrative items. I recommend approval of the organizational chart as attached.
Motion.
Second.
I have a question. Can we approve a work chart that has a job on it that we haven't approved a job description or a salary for yet? Are we not a little bit out of order? Should we not go job description, salary, work chart? Just
Either
asking.
chicken or egg here. Do we approve the
Because
job description first? Or
we're
the
approving
position
a
on
work
the
chart that has a job on it that we haven't approved a job description or a salary for.
I will defer to Ms. Thompson on that, which would be
That would
better.
make sense to do it the way you're suggesting.
I mean, it just seems like we should approve the description of the
Description.
job and the salary, and then whether or not we want to include that in our work chart.
Can I make them as one recommendation, or you want me to do two? Let me do the job description first. That's item B.
I think so. I mean, I don't have a problem looking at these things. I think we just need to make sure that we're doing them in the correct order. We do. We have to
You could table it?
table that to come back and then start with the description and then the salary, because I think you have to pull the salary out separate from the other packet in order to. So I would start with calling for a motion to table the work chart until we have approved a description and a salary.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of tabling the work chart until after we've approved a job description and a salary, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So now, okay with you.
Item B, I recommend approval of the following job description for Assistant Superintendent of Academic Accountability. And let me, I want to make an edit to this recommendation. It does say instruction and academic accountability, and this edit shows on the org chart. I'm going to ask you to approve in a second. I'm going to delete the word instruction off of it, so it will be the job description for Assistant Superintendent of Academic Accountability.
Why do you do that?
I think it was redundant. We have a supervisor of instruction, part of what, can we get maybe a motion in a second before discussing this?
Oh, yeah, you would need to make your recommendation as amended
Yeah.
with just excluding of instruction and.
That's right. So I recommend the job description for our Assistant Superintendent of Academic Accountability.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Ms. Rucker had a question of why we changed it.
Yeah, so as we kind of went through and debated on this, the point of what this would do is, and part of the reason of having this position is to bring in an accountability aspect that's involved with the learning of our students. And so whether you call that teaching and learning or instruction, if you're delivering instruction in a way that you think is fine, but the kids aren't learning it, okay, well, that really doesn't do us a whole lot of good. So I felt like focusing on academic accountability focuses more on the learning, just take the instruction piece out of it, and it makes it a little bit simpler and less of a mouthful to read. So we've kind of bannered about this title. The job description, what we want out of it, would be the same.
So what do you think that says? Just accountability? We're going to beat people over the head, or we want them to instruct
Yeah,
people?
I think it's the expectation of students to perform. I think in a situation now with our school system that we're running well. We've got good people in place. We've got great teachers, and I think our students can perform at the top as anyone else in Alabama. And as I've kind of looked around and how other systems have this position in place, I think the academic accountability is what we need right now, and I think it's what we're ready for. I think accountability is kind of the big buzzword now, but it does mean something. I mean, we've got letter grade report cards, we've got all kind of other expectations. I think when we hire a principal or a teacher or whether it's academic support staff, it is, hey, we're hiring you to help students achieve and learn. And that accountability shouldn't just come from one person, but from all of us. So I think that is very fitting to where we are as what a healthy system should be. They should be expecting that.
On number 10, supervision and evaluation of instructional staff and principals. So is this person solely the one that evaluates all of these people?
No.
How does that work?
They will be able to supervise and evaluate. When I came in and established kind of how we were going to operate and do business, and maybe it was good at the time, 3.5 years in, it's time we kind of go to the next level. But what I kind of, I felt, we flipped the org chart upside down. We viewed as a support mechanism to principals and our teachers, and we want to continue to do that. When I came in and I interviewed principals before starting this position, they felt like they had 10 bosses at the central office, 10 folks that could tell them, you're wrong, you do this, that's it, end discussion. And so with our directors that we had that was in that role, we basically shifted that to the chief of staff and me to directly supervise the principal to determine, if it was if there's going to be anybody's recommendation to bring a principal back or not, it was the chief of staff to me of what to do, and essentially my decision to you guys. I think it is time that we still continue to provide that support, but also kind of up our game a little bit and add that layer of accountability with that. And so this person would have the ability to say, hey, and that's why the title needs to be what it is. This is not okay, or this is how we're going to, they're going to be an evaluation or have supervisory responsibilities of principals.
So back to, it says supervision, I get that part, and evaluation. So is the evaluation, this person is going to do the evaluation, or is that you, Mark, and this person?
So right now, our directors technically are not the supervisors of principals. And so with this position, I can see this person working with the chief of staff to kind of figure out how we're going to evaluate principals. There's ways we do that now with Lead Alabama, but it's not really an evaluation tool. It's more of a professional growth tool. There's not a real rigorous evaluation of our administrators in place that's set by the state. I have goals for principals and for schools, and I meet with them once a year, and we'll meet mid-year also. So we set them in the summer, but we meet mid-year to kind of review those. So I think this would bring the academic aspect into that too.
So so if it's not going to be this person solely, would it be better to say something like supervision and participation in the evaluation of? If it's going to be, because it's going to be you and Mark and this person. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I think we would work together to figure that out. But what it would do is it would bring somebody else into that role of a supervisory nature. Right now, we don't have that. It's just the chief of staff supervising principals.
So you don't think it should be a little bit less than what it is. I mean, like they're going to participate in evaluation, I think is practically what they're going to do, but whereas this says they're going to evaluate. I mean, there's a difference.
Well, the evaluate means to be able to say to the principal, you're doing a poor job in this area. Or if it's to anybody else in the instructional team. So that would be the evaluative nature. Now, they can't fire anybody.
So that would be kind of an informal evaluation, but the formal evaluation, is this talking about formal and informal?
No, it's just to be able to evaluate. And right now, we technically don't have a formal evaluation tool that says good, bad, ugly, indifferent. It is more of a, the state form is more of a, hey, how are you going to deal with professional growth and that kind of thing. That's one thing Nathan and I, we've talked about is, do we need our own way to evaluate principals? To be able to come back when we make recommendations to you guys, well, let's see the evaluations, the yearly evaluations of principals. Well, that's kind of not how it's set up. But I think that is needed. I think it's needed to be able to go for principals to know that now, hey, there's going to be some accountability for the achievement of students, of how students learn. And so that's what the hope is with this position, to not say that our students aren't learning, but to show that we mean it. It's going to be a piece of the expectation.
Would assessment be a better word for what you're asking that person to do?
Well, I think it's more than just an assessment. I mean, are your kids having access to the Career Tech Center? Are they getting credentialed? Are they participating in quality? Whether it's our co-op program we're bringing in, if there's some schools that are participating at much lower levels than others, this position can help say, hey, you're going to need to do this. This is the expectation. So it really is going to be to carry on the expectations.
One of the things in our strategic plan is that or all-encompassing communication piece that runs through everything. Is there any part of this person's role that would include communicating what the level of accountability or the expectation of accountability is to those people that they oversee, as well as to the board and their stakeholders?
Yeah, I think that's my job. I think that if this gets approved and it's something the board wants to do, the conversations are going to need to happen in our department of what that's going to look as far as my leadership team.
Because part of his is to assist with the long-range strategic plan, and part of our current long-range strategic plan has communication as its constant throughout. So, I don't know, it just, and I, I'm open to discussion on that, but I just feel like somewhere in here there should be a piece about their ability to communicate. Perhaps that's a preferred qualification, but I think we can't leave communication out of that role.
I got you.
Well, and I want this position to be a position that is instrumental in helping principals be the instructional leader of their schools. That when something is not going right, that this person or someone on his or her team would say, you need to be doing this way. Let's try this. I mean, we need to be working with our principals as, as a team. And that is what I would like. I mean, I've sold this to people as it's a assistant superintendent of instruction, and now it's not. So,
okay.
Our people in the school need not to, they need to feel like this is where they can come for help, and we're going to help them, because everybody has the same goal, that students achieve at high levels.
Ms. Stowe, and we can leave that in there, the instruction and academic accountability, if you think leaving that out will lose part of that.
I don't know. That's why I said I'm just going to leave that out.
But right now, we do have a supervisor of instruction. We've got our federal program supervisor and a whole team of middle grades and elementary and high school that are support. What I hope is conveyed by this is that, when we hire principals now, we are hiring them to be the instructional leader of that school.
I know that.
But that's not necessarily, not in our system, but other principals necessarily don't see them as the instructional leader of our schools. But in Madison County, if you're a principal, you're the instructional leader of a school. And that, there needs to be some accountability piece there. But it is going to be to help them get there. That's why we're all here, is to help get those kids there.
Exactly right.
Yes.
That is why we would pay this amount of money to someone, is to make every principal in Madison County the best principal they could be, not to just be a watchdog over them and expect them to. No teacher can do everything right all the time. Somebody has to come alongside them. To me, this is that position that's going to come alongside your principals, your assistant principals, and, devise the best, absolute best instructional program we can afford for our kids.
Yeah.
Afford is the big word
And
there.
there's two ways to get better teachers or better principals, and that's either to hire new ones or help the ones you got get better. And so we spend a lot of time. Honestly, one of the titles we thought about in here that I'm talking with Mark is Assistant Superintendent of Professional Development. That was actually one of the things that we talked about. There's some systems that have that. And, I kind of would be okay with that too. You and I talked about how we like the accountability piece in there. But I see this, maybe you put Assistant Superintendent of Professional Development and Academic Accountability. But I think that professional development piece is important to understand that falls under this. And if you don't have that, the professional development is how you get the achievement. And it should be centered around that. Professional development for our teachers, professional development for our administrators, for our central office staff should be centered on how are we going to get kids to learn and to learn at high levels.
Is this person, you hire principals, so this person wouldn't be in the hiring process?
So we do a team. We have committees and kind of do that. That piece with it for principals, yeah.
Okay, so should that be in here, because it doesn't say anything about that?
No, I mean, I don't think it needs to talk about a hiring process for principals in here.
Well, that's part of it, it's duties though, right? I mean, to participate in the hiring.
Yeah, yes, I mean, if I say, hey, we're doing principal interviews, you need to be here this day, I mean, that
I
would
think
be.
you put it in the job description.
I mean, we have half a dozen folks that participate in principal interviews, but we don't put that in their job description. I don't think participating in principal interviews is, I mean, that would be expected, but it's not necessarily an essential function.
So can we add communication right there? Task and directing, communicating and carrying out. Would
Okay.
that change a whole lot to what you're?
No, that would be fine. So let me, Ms. Stowe, do you have a preference on, or you got any other thoughts on the instruction piece in there? I mean, it just makes it a longer mouthful there.
You want it because you want them to deliver the instruction, not just see what the results are.
He wants them to
Well,
focus only on accountability.
I know that you think that when there were 3 directors that things didn't function well. But when there were 3 directors for high school, middle school, and elementary school, principals always felt like they had somewhere to go for that person to help them. They don't come into a job just knowing everything. And I want this to be that.
Gotcha.
I want this person to use the people that are underneath their little rectangle there to, to help our schools. You don't land in a school knowing everything. You may think you do, but after a day or two there, you know you don't.
Madison County is probably the most unique of any school system I know, and I haven't been in a lot of different school systems, but I've talked to a lot of folks in different school systems, to where principals need something, they're very well heard, and their opinions are very well respected. That's why we have principals that come to board meetings, because if they give you guys advice, y'all listen to them a little bit more than you even listen to us if they make recommendations. Okay?
We
So
like
that's
them.
why I have a committee of 6 that, you know, not just to do it, but I understand that is, our principals in our school district are very much empowered to, as members of their community and staples of, they're the foundation of their school and that kind of thing. And so I would, if they don't ever feel supported, everybody would know, and we would make drastic changes and in a hurry. So this will be to continue to support our principals with that, absolutely.
Well, I know you think instruction is redundant in the term, but I think it also lends itself to the fact that it's a theme throughout, from the top to the bottom. We
Okay.
have a person who is responsible for finding instruction and accountable, and academic accountability.
All right, so I'm going to amend this
Withdraw.
document I'm asking you to approve here, of the job description, to say what it says.
Say what?
So you're withdrawing the motion.
No, I'm
Amending the motion.
I'm amending it.
motion.
The recommendation say the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction and Accountability. I'm going to add task on the job description to perform a variety of supervisory and administrative tasks in directing,
Communicating, and carrying out.
communicating, and carrying out.
Actually, you probably should do directing, well, no, go ahead, sorry.
Directing, communicating, and carrying out the Madison County School System's Division of Instruction and Academic Accountability.
So I think we need a motion for the amended recommendation,
Motion.
and then we'll need a second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Now I've got 3 motions.
All those in favor, please say aye.
What do we vote now?
We are voting on the amended recommendation to approving this exactly the way it came out of the paper,
And how it's on that sheet right
except
there.
for adding the word communicating after directing. On the description, it would say to perform a variety of supervisory and administrative tasks in directing, communicating, and carrying out the Madison County School Systems Division, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And then at the top, we're leaving instruction. And.
Just want to make sure I know what I'm
Okay,
voting on.
got it.
Yeah. Does everybody feel
Thank you.
comfortable? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
And then we need salary for
We're going to bring
this
up,
job.
back up to A, if that's okay, or do you want salary?
What-
Salary
Need a
next?
salary for the job description and then
Okay.
add it to the work chart.
All right,
So we
sounds
can
good.
pull out,
Let's go ahead and go C first, if that's okay.
okay?
All right. I'm going to recommend approval of the assistant principal and counselor allocation sheet as attached.
There's a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
I recommend approval of the 2018-19 salary schedule as submitted.
Now, you've made some changes since the last time we talked.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second.
So I made a couple changes. I emailed this to you this afternoon. In case you didn't get that, one of the changes is for deputy superintendent. It's the same salary band as chief of staff, but removing the incentive. And for the registrars, there was high school registrar on page 10. Is that right? We're changing that to local school registrar. We're going to look at possibly adding a registrar to our K-8 schools. If we do that, we would probably remove the 7 or 8 hour clerical aid. So what this does is, as we staff clerical aides and registrars, it will allow us to kind of, to staff that appropriately for them and to kind of give them an option there. If a local school did replace their clerical aide with a, quote, local school registrar, it would be an additional $3,000 to $4,000 a position, but the local school is picking up that tab right now. There's about half of our elementary schools pay their clerical aide an extra hour to get them to 8 hours a day. And so basically this would just, we would pick up that tab to get them to an 8 hour day.
So we didn't remove clerical aides from the salary
No,
schedule? Because I
we-
can't find it right now.
Yeah, we're
but-
still keeping clerical aides
Still
on there.
page
It's
11.
page 11.
Okay, but we're just allowing for elementary schools and middle schools.
To have a registrar.
Registrar.
And if they choose to have a registrar, we'll probably take away one of
their
those clerical aides. Yes.
So you're saying the registrar, it's neutral, I mean, paying them an extra hour or paying them?
Well, it's not neutral for us. It's going to cost us for our 22 K-8 schools, it would cost us about $3,000 per position. But that's what it's going to do. Our local schools that are paying that extra hour, it's going to save them. So big picture, yeah,
It
it's
costs a
pretty
little more,
neutral.
But it probably costs a little more anyway. right?
It's going to cost more out of the district level budget, but it
The
will
local
free up
school.
some local funds for our schools, that kind of thing. So it helps with schools, and it gets them all the hours they need. For the schools that couldn't afford to pay their clerical aides an extra hour, it helps them get a little more help there. And they're doing registrar work anyway, and that's kind of the main thing. They're already essentially doing registrar's work as a clerical aide.
So you're going to, those 7-hour people will be 8-hour people. Is that right?
Some of them are already 8, but the local school's picking up the 8. So
We pick up that.
if not, they're going to have to apply for those jobs. And obviously, we can't afford to have an extra one. So we'll have to see, not all schools may take advantage of this. Some may say, I don't need to registrar, just leave me with my clerical aide. So we're going to kind of basically have a conversation to see where we go from there. What this does is it opens up the option for middle schools and elementary schools to have a registrar. Right now, they can't because it's listed as a high school registrar. So this just kind of opens that door. We'll get, Karen will pretty much work this on her end and kind of the school staff, Karen and Mark, will get with principals, kind of basically individualize, say, hey, is this something you want to take advantage of? And some may come on next year and do it, some may wait a year to do it, but it will give us an option to kind of give them the help they need if they want it, if those principals want that.
I don't see how you could not have one at every school. I mean, you wouldn't be saying that they don't register at that other school that doesn't have one.
They're just
Well,
aides,
the-
clerical
The
aides.
clerical aides handle the
That
stuff
little
now.
clerical aide,
Does
Yeah, but I
all.
mean, it is the
everything.
registrar.
It is the
No matter
registrar.
what you call it, they're still being the registrar. So how could you say that you're not going to be one at every school? That doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't want to riff the clerical aides, a reduction in force, and then add this. So we'll just have to, this will, likely the registrar will apply. But there may be some cases where the registrar just wants to be 7 hours and they can't work it in their schedule, and the principal's like, hey, we'll just,
Clerical aid.
the clerical aide, what did I say?
You said
Registrar.
Sorry. The clerical aide, it may just be a better fit to use them for 7 hours, so we'll just, we're not going to come in and hammer and force them to do it. So, but it will be there for them if they want to do that.
So
So-
at any time, that person that's the clerical aide could say, I want to change.
Well, if they posted it and they interviewed and the clerical aide ended up not applying or something like that, we couldn't afford to just hire an extra registrar if there is a clerical aide. If they don't apply or something like that happen, that clerical aide would have to find another position. That's another, and there's other clerical aide positions in our system.
Basically, some of them would be by attrition. Some of the positions would be filled by attrition. And if they did not want to take that position at the time, then that just wouldn't have a registrar at that school.
But
They
at
don't
any
have one
time,
now.
they can change, the existing
It's-
person can change their mind.
Well,
they
it's
want
really
to-
the principal.
No, the principal could
Principal's like-
decide to have one.
Yeah, if a principal says, I want to registrar at my school, we'll go, okay, post the job and hire it out.
I think you're going to get into trouble because somebody is doing the clerical work, and then somebody over here they're clerical, and somebody over here is a registrar, and they're doing the same thing. It seems like this person over here that doesn't get paid. I mean, I would have a problem with that. That doesn't seem like it works.
When the same school?
No, but no, across our system. How can you have one person called one thing, doing the exact same thing that another person is?
Well, you've got that now,
That's what we're
because you've
doing
got
now.
clerical aides now doing registrar work when they're not getting paid to
But
do
they're all
registrar
called
work.
clerical aides now.
Well, in high school, they're called
No, in high
registrars.
school, they're called
No, I mean, but
registrars.
K-8, what we're trying to change right here, they're all called the same thing right now.
We're trying to allow for there to be more registrars than there are right now.
I know, but I don't think that doing it this way makes sense. I think everybody should become a registrar. I mean, you can't.
But there's still people.
I
who-
hope that happens.
There's still schools that need clerical aides as well, so if you have two, you can't make both of them become a registrar, because you still need a person who does clerical aid work.
Well, I'm not talking about the ones that have two, I'm talking about the ones that have one.
You're talking about if they just have one, why would a school not have a registrar, right? is
There
what
you
you're
go.
saying. Yeah, I don't know, I can't think of a scenario right now unless somebody just is like, no, I don't want it, and the principal says, no, I don't want
Well,
it.
I don't think we should leave that up to them. I guess that's what I'm saying. You should make the position, and if the person in the position doesn't want the new position,
Well-
then they just are out of luck.
So like right now, our high schools, if they reach a certain enrollment thing, they can choose to have a second registrar or a second bookkeeper. The principal gets to choose that. So we do allow a little bit of choice on on the staffing, as long as it's revenue neutral. So it's kind of like one of those things that if the principal wants a registrar, we want to give them a registrar. But if they don't want a registrar, I can't imagine a case where they wouldn't, unless it's like, you know what, let's just keep it 7 hours and go from there.
I don't know, but the person, it just seems like that person, I mean, it seems like they could raise a ruckus about this.
So you would rather just say, hey, everybody's going to have a registrar and we'll figure it out?
Well, it just seems to make sense. I mean, you either have a school and you operate, and somebody's a registrar, I mean, somebody has to do it, and so if you only have one person, they have to be it. I mean,
Well, that's the goal.
Your
So-
clerical
Yeah.
aides in your smaller schools are your registrar.
They are the registrar.
They answer the phone, they greet the people as they come in, they're the first line of defense. They're doing everything.
I know, so they should be called a registrar, not an aide.
Well, I,
That's what I want to do. That's the goal here.
Okay. But, I mean, it should be like, we should be.
We just haven't vetted this out to every principal to see, is there a scenario where this won't work? From
And
kind of
we-
how we've looked at it, it looks like this is going to work.
Okay.
But there may be some scenario where it's like, oh, we didn't think about that.
and they would have to reapply, these people who have sweated
It's a
their
new
blood
position.
for 20
Ken?
years at 7 hours a day.
Ken is mean.
It would, because it is a promotion, and that's one of the things that ADA is very adamant about, is that as long as you open it up, you know, the people that are in that position can be promoted to that position, but it still needs to be opened up.
But they would, I mean, probably
They
have
would be the
preference.
best
I mean, if
qualified.
they're
They would
doing a
be
good
the best
job.
qualified. They
Yeah.
they know the job, they know the school, they have all that knowledge base and the prior experience, so it would be a natural progression for them.
But what if, I mean, just hypothetically, what if you post the job and somebody else, principal wants somebody else? Just hypothetically speaking, what would happen that if, say you had a tenured clerical aide, how would that work?
That's the scenario that I was kind of talking about. It may get a scenario where I don't bring that recommendation to the board. Because it still has to be, you guys are still hiring them in that. So if there's a situation and they're trying to bump out,
But if we never start anywhere, then our clerical aides who have been doing registrar work for the last 20 years never have that opportunity
But I
to
mean,
move forward.
it's a significant pay raise. It's like $7,000, right? a year?
no.
I don't think it's quite that much.
If you look at the 187s, so,
It's an hourly rate is
yeah, their hourly rate will go, it will be a natural step up. So their hourly rate will be,
it's about a natural progression.
some of them are 240s.
Not $7,000.
It'd be very similar to the AP matrix y'all just approved, because it'd be by attrition. We're not going to automatically make all the APs 202 tomorrow.
Right.
So it's very similar to the same attrition process that we're using with the APs and the counselors. We're just doing it with clerical
they're
aides
gonna
and
be-
registrars.
So they're all 187s currently?
No, some are 240s.
So as a registrar, what will they be?
Help me.
Clerical aides, a lot of the elementary schools, their clerical aides are 240-day employees, most of them at 7 hours. Currently, some of the schools are paying their out of local funds an hour salary to make them 8-hour employees. So-
Right. So
So
that, so
that-
it's a
so-
$7,000 raise, right? I mean, is that?
That's about right.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying. pointing
There's
out
not
what-
a 248 hour. So what they would do, so like if, let's say, look at their clerical aid step 5, their hourly rate is $13.80. Okay? See that down at the bottom there?
Okay.
So they would go to the next step that's higher for a local registrar. So go from 1380 to 1413. That's step 2.
Okay.
So step 5 doesn't necessarily equal, step 5 under 7 hour doesn't equal step 5 under the 8 hour. It's the hourly rate.
So you move up to the next available.
So they may
rate.
go from like step 5 on clerical to step 2 on
I see.
registrar.
Okay.
The next highest hourly. rate.
Next highest hourly
Well,
rate.
like, okay, so in that example, you go from step 5, which is 1380, and then you go to 1413, right?
Correct.
So when you look at the dollar amount of that, that's $6,000. No, wait, it's $4,000.
Yeah, it's about,
4,000.
yeah, it's about $3,000 to $4,000. But that $4,000 is just that hour, it's that extra hour that we're now paying for.
So the person's really getting that anyway, because the local person's.
If they're already getting paid, they're really not gonna get, is maybe a few $100s.
Okay.
Yeah. If they were already 7 hour, but they'll at least have the title of a registrar of what they're doing.
Right.
What you're paying is actually that extra 240 hours over that time from 7 to 8. You're paying for 240 hours more. Does that
240
make sense?
days at 8 hours a day.
So,
The system is, but right now, the school is.
Correct.
Okay.
For instance, Legacy Elementary School is paying that extra hour out of local fund. That money would go back to the school for local use, but it wouldn't be taken out from the system level. So it's really both. They're being compensated. It's just which pot is it coming from, the local fund versus the system.
a lot of these people are tenured as clerical aides, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we said they were all registrars, you're really doing away with clerical aides, right? No,
Because
okay,
we have
well, that's
other-
good.
we have
Okay.
other
We still
clerical.
have some, that's
You'll still
part
have-
of the issue.
Okay.
Other schools with a clerical aide and a registrar.
That would have been nice and clean if we could have just eliminated it, but it doesn't, it won't work that way.
Well, then you could, a principal could conceivably rift these people that have sacrificed their whole life for these schools to get somebody else. So that's not a good thing.
No, it's not.
That's not a good thing. I mean, these
We
people.
want to do it to help our people.
Yes, these are good people.
But you still want to give them an option by keeping the clerical aid.
Well, we
title.
have other clerical aides who aren't necessarily in the registrar thing. So folks that work in the attendance office, they're clerical aides.
Right.
They're not doing the registrar kind of thing. So there's other clerical aid positions that aren't just these gatekeepers into our elementary schools.
And so at this point, all things being even, job post, all the clerical aides of the school could apply for it, for that
Correct.
local school
That is
registrar.
correct.
It's not a guarantee that the one that's currently doing the registrar duties is going to automatically carry it.
That's correct. But if they choose somebody else, that clerical aide would have to go somewhere else.
If they want to.
If you have two clerical aides for the school, both the position, they could both apply, even if that person was doing the registrar. Yes, there'd be a scenario where the person currently doing the registrar duties was not hired, the other person in that school was hired. So that person would just continue the clerical aid without registrar.
Okay.
And they need to know they have to keep on doing what they've always done. They just going to get paid. They can't quit answering the phone and all that just because they're a registrar, right?
That's right.
They're going to get paid a little more.
All right.
Well, I mean, it sounds.
Ready for a vote?
totally different.
Do we have any further discussion on the salary schedule?
I'm still looking at it.
I'm sorry, Sherry, I didn't hear
I'm
what you
still
said.
looking at it. I
Okay.
haven't made it all the way through it yet. So the middle school supplement. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm good.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And do your org chart.
All right. So we're going to jump back up to the org chart. So
Yeah.
on the org chart, you have attached to recommend approval of the org chart with the edit of Assistant Superintendent of Instruction and Academic Accountability in that green box.
It's a rectangle.
In that
Only that's.
rectangle.
You had given us motion? Do we have a motion?
We did
did
table
already.
it,
We
Oh,
just
so
tabled it.
okay.
we have a recommendation now with a amendment to, or actually, I guess, clarification that assistant superintendent will remain of instruction and accountability, and academic
Yeah.
accountability.
Did any other titles change besides
The-
the deputy superintendent in that one?
The only other change was we had a blue strand to connect over to coordinator of student services.
So it reports to two different things.
Yep. There are some things that coordinator of student services deals with instruction, like 504 plans, that kind of thing is an instructional deal. But the disciplinary piece of hearings and expulsions really doesn't fall under instruction. So that is one edit that is different from the last one I showed you.
Well, you know, we've had several of these things, and one of them had
Iterations.
circles that, and I think that, you know, that kind of clarifies some of the legal things that we've dealt with lately, and it's not on this org chart, so.
That is true. We dealt with that legal thing in a separate way, though. And each of these departments will have an org chart up under them. That's not necessarily board approved, but I can get that to you.
So I think we had a motion and a second, so.
I'm not sure if we
there's-
actually did. Did
We had
have
a motion and a second, and then we tabled with a motion and a second.
And then we had a motion and a second to table,
So,
not had a motion and a second with the clarified recommendation.
so we need a motion and a second for this work chart that
Matches.
matches, the title will match the job description as approved.
Motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the work chart?
So the rest of the story, is there going to be a org chart for that?
For each of the sub-departments?
Yeah, as they go.
There's a lot of them that already exist, like Karen has an org chart that exists. Ken has an org chart there. I can just send that to you guys. So I've
we're
already
gonna
had.
approve all those.
This is basically my leadership team of how it works together.
You want me to show that to Mr. Massey before? we-
He knows what I'm talking about, I think. We
Okay.
just
I do.
need.
Okay.
Cindy, do you think that's necessary? Are we okay with what we've done?
Well, I mean, I think that specifies what you've already put in writing, if you choose to.
I would
So there's
rather,
no way.
because it's hard to figure out what to leave off.
This is just the one over
There's
the world org
subtopics.
chart, and then you're leaving I'm just, that's my vernacular. This is the one over the world org chart, which is the main staff.
That's right.
And then
My
each
leadership
and
team.
each individual, chief of operations, deputy of auxiliary services, director of information, they're gonna have their own org charts broken out.
And I'll have it presented to you. We can present it to you guys.
So when you come back and present this, could you have subcategories with the names of who those individuals are?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll have that as a presentation item too.
Pass that back to Ms. Stowe. Item A.
I'm gonna
Exhibit A.
be like Carrie. I'm gonna keep all this stuff and bring it
That's
10
right.
years, see what y'all are doing.
Is there any further discussion regarding the work chart? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
In
Thank
10
you guys
years.
for bearing with me on that.
All right.
Okay. Recommend approval of the following personnel items as attached.
Can you remember, never mind.
Wait, where are we now?
Personnel
Motion.
items.
Oh. Motion.
So we have can you be the second? Would you
I
mind being the second?
can.
And then, any discussion?
Oh, remind me again what that BP means on the,
Board page.
On the supplemental contracts,
Where are we at?
Board pay.
board paid or local school paid.
what? Oh, okay, so this is like,
See, number
This is-
3.
do what?
Number 3 is the LS.
She was laughing.
I was on the one that says certified employee supplemental contracts.
Yeah, number 3. You see number 3, it's got a LS.
Mine doesn't, mine has a BP. Oh, you're, oh.
I'm on the certif-
No, no, no.
You're looking at non-athletic, okay.
Oh, I'm on the right one. Mine doesn't. Oh, it does have that.
Okay, so that means somebody's booster club is playing that
Or
one?
the local school, yeah, it's paid out of local funds.
Oh,
Does
I know what
local
you're saying.
school mean booster
BP,
fund
four
too,
paid,
or
four
not?
paid.
Are those paid out of booster funds, or could it be out of the,
Mostly, it
Yeah.
could be other sources.
So if it says BP, it means it's off the salary schedule, I guess.
the board, out of our budget?
A board, system
Is it on
level.
the salary schedule?
Yes, even if LS is off the salary schedule, they can't pay more
Okay.
than what's on the salary schedule. It's just paid for as, like the coach's age, or if they want more coaches, they can pay for those.
Is there any further question or discussion regarding personnel items? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right,
I think you're going to make it.
do it.
I think you're going to make it.
All right, I recommend approval of the settle agreement and release as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Can you go over, Cindy, why now we need the acknowledgement, whereas before we didn't think we did?
Which, the changes that were made to this agreement have been made through negotiations between myself and Jeff Rich, and I'm not sure what do you mean by the acknowledgement?
There's an acknowledgement on this now?
The last signature. Is that
So,
right?
I mean, I asked
Oh.
repeatedly why, was that not needed, and it wasn't until now, and now it is. So can you kind of go through how that?
Because when I look back, when we started looking at this, putting it in final form, I talked with Jeff Rich, and we decided we would check with Tom Francis, and Tom suggested that we do the acknowledgement.
And why would we do that?
Because they were
Because they
in the first.
acknowledged the funding agreement. So
No.
Tom recommended that they acknowledge the settlement agreement.
Yeah.
That was just, I contacted him, and that's what he recommended, so he actually gave me that language, and I put it in here.
He didn't explain why all of a sudden he thought it needed to be in there.
I don't know that it wasn't all of the sudden, it was just part of the process back and forth.
Jeff?
I mean, I had a long email chain asking
Jeff
about
asked for
this,
this?
and
Yeah,
Tom did,
that's Tom
okay.
Francis.
and we discussed it at that joint meeting too. I brought it up there. Does the authority not need to be a part of this? And the answer was no. And now it does, so.
Well, it's an acknowledgement.
I know, that was my question at the joint meeting.
I didn't understand you were asking about an acknowledgement. I thought you were asking, did they need to sign here where the board and the county is signing?
Well, no, they were an acknowledgement on the original agreement.
They were an acknowledgement.
And so that was my question, how do they get left out of the loop when we're trying to dissolve this? And nobody seemed to have a concern about it, now all of a sudden it shows up, so.
Well, it's in the loop now.
I know, but the process of why I got there is what I'm asking. How does nobody think it's important all during this discussion, and then all of a sudden it becomes important? I want to know why that happened.
I
Just
contacted Tom
approve the agreement
Francis
first, and they have discussions.
and asked him, as your bond attorney, did he think that we should put the acknowledgement in there? And he said that'd be a good idea. I mean, that's,
It didn't go back to the language in the pool agreement?
no. Now, if he looked, I don't think he looked at the full agreement. What he looked at, to respond to my question, we had a phone conversation, and out of that phone conversation, we agreed it'd be a good idea to put it in there. And he said he would follow up with Clinton Carter, the secretary of the APSCA, and get it signed for you.
No, it wouldn't. But
After
you
it's
know, you and
approved.
I had email conversations about this.
So-
You remember those, right?
I've had some email conversations with you, specifically what they said off right now. I haven't looked at them recently.
Well, they were
now.
pretty.
So it was an iterative process, and you agree that it should be in there, and it's in there now. So is the purpose here, I told you so, or is there more?
No, it's really not, but it's why, I guess it's trying to understand, I mean, I asked repeatedly something concerning this,
Mhm.
and that counsel didn't come in a timely manner. That pool agreement said if there was threatened litigation, that.
Did we have an expected time frame for that?
Well, that
That
pool
pool agreement says if there's pending litigation, and
it
there is no
threatened-
pending
no, it says
litigation.
threatened, if you go back and read it. So that pool agreement talked about threatened litigation. So we couldn't have these BRAC funds.
Does that
spent.
change your support of,
No, Angie, but it kind of points out that we sort of didn't have the legal counsel during the process that we needed it. It came kind of at the end here. That's kind of the point I'm making.
okay.
I think that we didn't get all the counsel we needed as the process moved along.
Well, I did
Okay.
offer to have your bond attorney come up here and speak with the board, I believe. I'm pretty positive I have emails to you where I said, if you needed these questions answered, I suggested that you have your bond attorney who wrote these documents come and interpret the documents for you.
But at the end, we didn't have him come up here. You just worked it out with him.
I spoke with him over the phone, yes.
So
I
we
was
could-
never received a request from this board to have Tom Francis come and address this board.
And he still hasn't been here, but in the end, it got worked out.
But I did make that offer, to have the lawyer that prepared those documents for you come here and address the board and answer your questions. I did make that offer.
Is there
I
any-
think we're all happy about it being resolved now, though.
Is there any further discussion or question about the current settlement agreement? And
So we feel like this will do it, right?
Mr. Rich sent me an email saying, and he has reviewed it, I've negotiated, we've been back and forth with language, and he said this complied with the terms of the resolution that was passed by the county commission at last week's meeting.
And will they have to, then we vote on it tonight, will they have to re-vote?
He said the
No.
way it's structured on their side is that you vote on it tonight, and then it would go to the chairman for signature. It would not go back to the commission for a vote.
So we don't pay until he signs.
That would be correct. Until it's completely done.
I think the date was in actually, which is in May
We
18th.
used that date
May
arbitrarily
18th.
Right.
because that was the Friday following
Their
the
meeting.
next meeting of the commission and the next meeting of this board. In the event there needed to be another meeting for some reason, we do not anticipate that being needed. But that is strictly an arbitrary date.
Well,
that Mr.
we
Rich agreed to.
certainly are in appreciation of them being willing to settle this.
yes, I would agree. Wholeheartedly. Anything else? Anyone else have any question or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's your agenda.
So we have an executive session on here, but we only have about 4 minutes before we've got to go to our retirement dinner. Not our retirement dinner. but
We're not
the-
retiring,
We're not
The
retiring.
MCEA
although
retirement
that is
dinner.
attractive.
So-
People are fixing to applaud.
Maybe we can just clear y'all out real quick. Can y'all go home in a hurry?
Well, we'd have to move still to go into executive
I
session.
guess you can.
You'd have to,
Either way, they're gone. Oh, inappropriate.
Right now tonight, so we won't get out of here.
I'm leaving.
We can either motion to adjourn or motion to get an executive session.
I was coming.
so we have two requests. We can,
Ms. Stowe?
What?
we as a board still need to decide whether to motion to go into an executive session to discuss litigation or motion to go into adjournment in order to get to the dinner on time.
The dinner's at 6, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a 15-minute deal? We can make it to Cinchay's in 15 minutes. Can we do it in 15 minutes?
Yes, ma'am. We can do it in 5.
That's the litigation.
We can't pay in 5 minutes, but okay. Oh.
Which I'm going to have to do at some point.
So what do I have a motion for?
What are we going into executive?
Yeah.
Well, there's a
Pending litigation?
pending litigation of suit that's there that I need an offer that y'all got to decide whether you want to make or not.
We do have a certificate prepared to enter for adjournment. The board's decision,
We need a motion?
Motion second.
correct,
Yeah.
for,
There you go. We hit that.
okay.
There, we hit that.
So we need a motion, we have a second to move in executive session. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Turn off your mics.
All right, so
Are these?
Yeah, let's make sure.